Yeah, hi
Thank you,
everybody. So the next session, which I think is going to be very interesting, and as far as I can make it as practical as possible, is going to be about sharing and circular economies in organizations. We're going to have two amazing people who know a lot about this issue. One is a practitioner, Debbie Appleton from Niaga, the CEO. And they'll tell us about, she'll tell us what they're doing, which is just amazing. And Navied, who's also with us, Tavakolly, who's also a leader and a person who's doing so much in circular economy. So hi everybody, are you with us?
Navied is here.
Yes.
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning. So ladies first, so we'll start with Debbie. And the first question, or maybe the only question I have, is, can you please tell us, Debbie, what are you doing, and what is it? Why is it changing the world, or why is it changing the field, if you compare it to everything else that's going on?
Thanks for the question, and hello to all. Thank you for the invitation, and both Yair for the organization. One addition to the introduction, I don't have the role of CEO for Niaga. I have a wonderful, inspiring managing director. Love working for her. I have the role of materials recovery, which means that Niaga focuses on redesigning everyday products to make them non-toxic and fully recyclable. But if these products are then still thrown away by the consumers, we don't win anything. So my role is really about building those value chains, the corporations, to make sure that we get the materials back to the place where it can be recycled. So I work with a lot of teams of super skilled material scientists, and you can't make them more happy than asking, how would this product look like if we would redesign it, and designing out waste and designing out toxins. And they'll start from scratch and completely design it with materials which are healthy and infinite, that can be recycled again and again and again without loss of quality. And like most innovations, this one actually started with frustration. So the founders were really frustrated by the fact that carpet, the first segment that we were active in, that actually less than 3% of the carpet worldwide is turned into new carpet. And a similar figure goes for mattresses. At the same time, there's all these global issues, which a couple of the people before have also mentioned: the resource depletion, there's a growing population. And one that has not been mentioned yet is the indoor air climate and the effect it has on us as health. So there's actually two crises going on, the ecological one and the health one, because of the materials and how we use them. So how do we design out waste and toxins? There's three simple rules that our designers use for every design they make. One is keep it simple. So use the lowest amount of materials possible. We love monomaterial products, which are made out of just one type of polymer, for example, only made of PET or only made of polyamide. The example that you see on the screen right now is a carpet which has a top layer of wool and a bottom layer of polyester. So that's two materials. They're bound together by an unclick adhesive. So keep it simple is rule number one. Don't add ingredients because it's going to add to the complexity. It's going to add toxins. It's going to hinder the recyclability. Rule number two is use healthy and infinite materials. And what we mean with infinite is the materials that can be recycled again and again to the same value and the same type, a similar or equal application. So a lot of recycling tends to be that you kind of downgrade the material and then we make garden furniture or something else, which is also still super useful, but it can't be turned back into what it was. There's only a couple of materials that keep that value and keep that performance. And then the third rule is, if you don't use a mono-material product, but you need one or more materials, like for example this carpet with wool and polyester, make sure that you have reversible connections so that you can take it apart and have two pure material streams again. So far, we've worked in 3 different applications. There'll be pictures of all 3 of them circulating on the screen. It all started with carpet. And then from there, we also redesigned mattresses to make that fully recyclable and non-toxic. So the mattress is designed is 100% polyester and steel. So it's steel for the springs, and all the other components are made of high quality polyester. And the interesting thing is that it can be both refurbished, so the components can be reused again and again, which also changes the business model for the producers because they don't have to earn back everything in the first cycle. For example, the steel springs and a couple of the other components can be reused again and again. And it's something that you can compare with your car, that as soon as you have a flat tire, you don't toss away your entire car, you just replace the tires and then move on with the product. And the third application is furniture panels. And that is something which Navied will also be able to tug into in this session. That's how his previous company and Niaga also teamed up to make sure that there is a furniture panel that is fully recyclable into either the cellulosic fibers and the Niaga adhesive. And it also aids to repair and refurbish because the adhesive also serves with an unclick. So you can just take off the skin and refurbish it, put on a new skin on the furniture without having to throw the whole thing away. One of the interesting things that I always love when I see our material scientists at work is that you know that you found the sweet spot of your design once that you see there's all these added benefits. So their target is it has to be non-toxic and it has to be fully recyclable. And when the design is finished, then we also notice, for example, with the carpet, oh, it's lightweight. So installers can only use one person. They don't have to use 2 people anymore to carry it upstairs. And hey, it's more breathable. So it's hypoallergenic and it's easier to clean. And we found the same thing with the mattresses, that because you don't have to add flame retardants, because it's a pure material, it actually has flame retardancy in itself, which makes it more healthier. It's a more breathable mattress. And the same thing we found with the panels. In redesigning these furniture panels, we found out, oh, but it's actually much easier to repair and to refurbish. And I think as a designer and as an architect, that's when you know that you reached the sweet spot of what your design needs to look like. There's 2 things I would like to add to this, because everything's of course always about the money. Is it profitable? Does this make sense? How mature is it? One thing is that over the course of our existence, we found out that the 3 pillars that Niaga advocates, which are recyclable, non-toxic, and transparent, which means you display all the ingredients that are inside the product. So not the ingredients that are not inside the product, but full transparency of ingredients. And these 3 influence each other. You can't have a healthy product without transparency of ingredients, and you can't have a recyclable product if it's full of toxins, because those toxins will come back every time again. So that's a really strong trio. And in order to make it profitable, there's 2 main messages. The return is key. What you will see on these pictures is that every product going into the market has a tag. That tag can then be scanned with a simple phone. Sometimes it's a QR code, sometimes it's an RFID chip. This will bring you to a landing page, and this landing page has both the return instructions. So what do you need to do to return your furniture, your carpet, your mattress? Sometimes it's just click on this button and it will be picked up. Sometimes it says, this is where you can send it to, depending on the size, of course. And this always has a link to the product passport. So everybody, as a consumer, you have a right to know what is inside your product in case of allergens. And as a recycler, you have a right to know what you're going to throw into your machine, because you need to find the right settings. And the second thing, the first thing is return is key, because you invest in high value materials, you want it back, because it's the buy your assets once approach and keep reusing them. That's going to make it much more economic sense. And the second thing to make it commercially interesting is we always work with a value chain approach. So we're not just a technology provider. We always work together with our partners and the collectors and the recyclers. to have this whole value chain together and make sure that you do what is needed to make that process efficient. So what you see nowadays, a lot of this work is done in silos. So most of the companies think about their own part of the activity. So just the collection, or just the processing, or just the recycling. Whereas you really want to have consortia that can make it easier for each other. There's always a way to make it more economic, more efficient, if you get this full value chain approach. And I would love to hand it over to Navied, because I know he can tell more about the panels and also about how going from today to your infinite horizon where you want to be.
Perfect. Thanks, Debbie. Before I start my presentation, there are two things which I want to emphasize on Debbie's story. Yes, I have a background in the panels. So I've worked with the company Ecor, which is making cellulose fiber panels without any additions, any toxic adhesives. So we use a water process instead of a hot melt process. And today is my last day at that company. So I can still say I'm working for Ecor and I can help fill out Debbie. We have collaborated over the last 3 or 4 years with DSM Niaga, developing a whole panel, because if you make this with a water product, you have difficulties in thickness. Your cycle time for making the panels, because you have to dry them in a hot press, will exponentially grow with the thickness. So stumbling upon, because that is it, it's always coincidence. It's serendipity where innovation starts. Stumbling upon a non-toxic adhesive which we could use for lamination, where the added value was that we could grow in thickness without having this exponential growth in cycle time, and also adding, for example, a lightweight honeycomb structure into the panel, which gives a very strong panel without the increase of mass, was very beneficial to both companies. So that's what I want to emphasize. And then going into that supply chain part, we put this in the market in furniture panels, and all over Europe, and that's where I have been looking around. Quite a lot of green deals have been signed in furniture, and they always look at the steel components, the foot of the furniture, which is easily to refurbish. But the desk, the particle board, which is used as a desk, is always incinerated, as it is unable to be recycled. Now, DSM Niaga has proven with the furniture panel that it is possible to now also refurbish and recycle panel material for furniture. And that's a game changer. The policy in Europe is already there, that you need to move to circular panels. And we've shown technically that it's possible. The legislation is already there. And the business models are also there, because a lot of furniture, especially in the B2B market, they lease the furniture. They put it out as a service. It's for you as a company to use, not to own. So that also means that there is a return flow, and that return flow gives the volume and makes it feasible also economically to refurbish or recycle these panels, because it's all coming back in one flow. It can be deassembled because it's designed for disassembly, so you can just unscrew the desk, and then you have two separate flows, one of fibers with Niaga and one of steel, which are then manufactured. So this supply chain is built up also in partnership. Now, currently I'm working for the Dutch government as a program manager for the Dutch Innovation and Knowledge Agenda. And what we do, and that's where I will start my presentation, which means I cannot see your faces anymore. What we do is we have set up a multi-year program where we put in subsidies and finance into the market to drive innovation and research programs to accelerate the circular transition the Dutch government has put into. This has been initiated by the Dutch Ministry for Infrastructure and Water, and that's also how it's funded. And we support the national circular economy targets. So the Dutch government has set targets to be 100% circular economy in 2050, but probably even more important, 50% of the resources in the Dutch economy should be in circular use by the coming 10 years, which is quite ambitious. So we accelerate and steer this circular economy transition by supporting and initiating the circular economy related research and innovation projects. And we do this using 3 programs: Design for Circularity, Circular Resources and Processes, and very important, Behavior, Trust and Adaptation of Circular Products and Circular Materials. Now, the second thing which Debbie said is, you want circular to be healthy. And this comes back in that Design for Circularity program. So we steer towards non-toxic products and new material development, which have the same functionality, for example, fire retardancy, without having the toxic elements in them, which are currently used in for example, fire retardant coatings and so on. So how does that relate to the sharing economy? Well, there are basically 2 blocks. One is in the more technical and use applications. So you can look, for example, in innovation and research in transparent data, the whole blockchain movement which is coming up. If we are going to share products, how can we build trust using the sharing of data and transparent sharing of data? It is already quite a common practice in high value goods to share assets, for example, in mobility. And I know there are a couple of speakers who dive into that in later sessions, but also in medical equipment. There's a Dutch company called Flow2, which is basically a platform for health organizations to share their spare capacity of medical equipment amongst each others. So there are whole platforms where, for example, hospitals can use each other's spare capacity, either by planning scans, for example, at other hospitals, or by just moving an asset, a scanner, a CT scanner, for example, for a certain amount of time to their own hospital. And now what you see coming up is also the sharing economy in consumer goods, for example, in electronics and in textiles. So I think Lina of the clothing library already gave a small pitch here, but also, for example, these concepts of mobile phones, of headphones, and so on are hitting the market here in the Netherlands. Then on the more process side, the sharing economy could offer alternative business and income models. And it's a very good way to initiate behavioral interventions where you can work towards adaptation and nudging for the circular economy. And especially in the younger generations, we see they are much more open to make use of a product instead of owning a product. As I told you, we are opening up calls and tenders for research and innovation. One is coming up this summer. I'm not going to tell you a lot about it, but I just want to highlight a couple of strategies and fields of applications where the sharing economy could meet the circular economy. So if you want to go for a sharing economy, you should think about your product. Is it modular? Because if you can disassemble it and you put it into the market, it has more value to yourself. You need to think about the maintenance and the repair of your assets. And you need to think about, after the use of, for example, putting it into the market, is there a second-hand use? Could we generate more value out of it after it has been put out, for example, in a fleet where it is shared or on a platform? Fields of applications we believe have a high chance for the sharing economy is electronics, healthcare, and textiles. And just to give you a case study, which is already happening in the Netherlands, it's called Gerrard Street. And Gerrard Street has designed high quality headphones. So I have like these small in-ear headphones. They have like the big ones, which usually sell for 300, 400, 500 euros. They have designed it all the way to be modular. And they actually send you a small envelope, not with the whole headphone, but with all the components. So you as a user assemble your headphone yourself. That's very, very important. It already gives bonding to the product because you have the idea that you have made it yourself. And they have a leasing contract. So you pay every month, you pay a fee, about 10 or 12 euros. You pay that fee and you can use that headphone. Once the headphone is broken, you don't return the headphone. You tell which component is broken and they send you a small component. So you don't need to discard the whole headphone. You know how you've built up the headphone, so you can disassemble it yourself, replace that component, and keep using the headphone, which obviously saves a lot of waste materials. And also a lot of cost for Gerrard Street, because they don't have to make that whole headphone again and again. Now, on the business modeling side, two interesting things happened. When they started to hit the market, they had a monthly fee of about 5 to 7 euros 50. And they got a very small market because people thought if I only pay 5 euros per month, it should be a low quality headphone. So they drove up the price and it's about 10 to 12.50 now per month. And now they've got a bigger market because people actually believe it's a high quality headphone. So that's a very interesting way to make money. What I also like is, especially due to COVID reasons, but also pre-COVID, all these shared working spaces, they now offer it to HR departments and companies because they have these noise cancelling headphones. So they use it as means to solve another problem, the surrounding sound. So when you're working at home, having children, which make a lot of noise, you have cancelling headphones, and they actually sell it now business to business or offer it as a service business to business to HR departments. So next to a business to consumer market, they've opened up a business to business market with other alternatives. And I think that's important to realize what is your business model and what is your target market. So I find this one to be very interesting. They have built a modular headphone. They ensure that they don't create waste once the headphone is malfunctioning, but it's repairable and they only have to replace a spare part. They offer it as a service. And actually people are getting very enthusiastic about it. And also now they found a business to business application here. Another case study which I want to show you is the Beatbox, which is currently being developed and in development. If you think about sharing economy, I think about a sharing economy practice which has been taking place for decades, and that's the library. You go to a library and you take a book, you read it and you return it, and you have a small fee which you pay to the library to use that book. Obviously, there's wear and tear on the book. And the organization of the National Organization of Libraries in the Netherlands is now working on refurbishing these books. So what they do is they take off the cover and they have opened up a new business model where they can be in contact, making a customized cover, for example, for the Dutch railways, and offer these books in trains so that the travelers can read a book while they are in the train. So they now starting to offer a new additional business models where they can make a deal with a brand, for example, the Dutch railways, or with a festival, or with Starbucks, where they can offer these, what they call the Beatbox, and Beep is library, so it's a library box, in a public place where a lot of people come, offering refurbished books branded with the organization's logo and story, and offer that to the customers which are already there. So these are two of the developments which have taken place or are taking place currently, where sharing economy and circular economy are intertwined.
Very, very interesting. Thank you so much. Maybe just one last short question.
Sure.
Maybe Debbie, you want to say something and kind of sum up and there's a question that I think might be relevant from the audience. What do you think changes the minds of people, like the behavioral side of consumers, of people, of the younger generation? What do you think that they might think about these things? How can we change their minds?
Good question. Sorry, my 2-second reflection was, do we need to change the minds? Or do we need to change the offers? Because I think the hardest thing is changing the status quo. That's seriously the only hurdle we have. Technically, everything is possible. Financially, there's so much money. It's just used in a very wrong way. But it's really about, the example that I try to give people is, if you ask people to brush your teeth with your other hand for just 1 week, it's going to be horrible. A, you keep forgetting that you took that resolution. B, you're going to probably have some blood in your mouth somewhere. And something like that is what we do every day. We ask people to do it differently than you were used to doing it yesterday. And specifically regarding the younger generation, I think the younger you are, the less stuck you are in status quo or system thinking. And the easier it is to go back to, what is my actual need? What is the thing that I want? What is the wish that I need to fulfill? And then if that can be offered in a way that it fulfills it, you won't have but that's not how we've always done it. So I think it's more about going back to what is the intrinsic need behind something that you are trying to fulfill with your product or your service. And just as an example, a lot of people link circular economy directly to leasing, but leasing is just a means to change ownership and responsibility, or to have value chain cooperation. But it's really about thinking, what is the intrinsic need behind it? Oh, maybe it is because I want to incentivize the returns. Okay, well then look at how can you do that in a way that it services the people's needs.
Yeah, good
That's
point.
a very long answer to a very short question.
Yeah, no, I think it's really, really good. I think it's, thank you very much.
And if I can chip in, I heard a story by an alderman here in the Netherlands who worked a lot in the circular economy. And I love this story always. Do we need to change the mind of the youth? So he has an electric car. And then once he got a regular car because his electric car was in the shop. So he got a replacement one. And he needed to fill it up with petrol. And the first thing his child said, that's so illogical that you need to drive somewhere to fill up your car with petrol and not have to be able to charge it at home. What a stupid car this is. So do we need to change the mind, or do we just need to teach what nature teaches us and what is logical? Because we are all nature, and especially children feel the nature already within. So let's make use of that and not change the mind for the system we have created.
Yeah, great summary. Thank you so much. Thank you for both of you. Now I want to go to the next case, which I think is really one of the interesting startups or companies at this point.